All right, this is Intro to Criminal Justice, video 3. All right, 1. Describe the connection between Chapter 19 and drug courts justice that heals. In your own thoughts, how are drug courts effective as a specialized court, and what ways could they improve? Okay, this is my response. Drug courts take into account of the addiction of these criminals and oftentimes offer rehab to better these people so that the government saves money and these people get the help that they need, rather than getting stuck in a cycle that would otherwise happen. I think drug courts are more beneficial for everyone and that it's more effective than just throwing everyone in the same system. No, I guess I did say that. When it's different kinds of problems that landed these people into these systems, like sociological perspective stuff, like not getting proper mental health treatment or not having enough money for like food, so maybe they'll try this stuff to stave off this hunger or whatever. Who knows? But I know that a lot of times people don't just get into drugs to get into drugs. Unless they're like partiers. But those tend to be like a one-time thing and then getting addicted to it. Okay. I think we should be advertising this option more, especially across the US, and for those that haven't been convicted yet that want help. Like, we should be offering these programs to civilians more often and being like, hey, before you commit more crimes, here's options, more guidance counselors, because sometimes a lot of times people don't get help until it's too late because they don't realize that there is help. It's not advertised enough and people are like, oh, there's nothing here for it. And that's because we don't advertise the help because, well, obviously it would cost money, but the US is very much built onto a cycle. Like, we catch criminals, we put them away, but we don't really rehab them very often because it costs money for that rehab because we don't have enough research done on it, but our government doesn't want to pay for that research because it's expensive research, and this and that, and this and that. But I think it would be more beneficial if we were advertising this more often, like, through, like, media. Social media would probably better help with the advertising instead of just shoving it in a magazine and expecting someone to look at it. Make it an ad, shove it in people's faces and being like, hey, here's some help. Kind of like BetterHelp. BetterHelp, the therapy thing. I was actually recommended that. But I hear that's good. And I think it would be more beneficial to make this more personalized, making sure that people know that it's not just about mental health, but to seek other help. And sometimes these people end up needing help in the sense of like financial help, but they don't want to ask. Right. We should also ensure that if they relapse, they will receive a sentencing as a decent motivator, as some people wouldn't take this seriously otherwise. Which is like, what I mean by that is making sure that we aren't letting them off completely easy. Because obviously some people are going to try to take advantage of the fact that they could be like, oh, I can just get clean for a little bit and then I can go back right into it. But to make sure that this doesn't happen, we should be like, hey, if you fail, you're going to suffer your sentence. You do this for yourself. This is your motivator. Okay. Question 2. After watching The Plea and reading Chapter 15, make an argument for or against banning plea bargaining. Make sure to use material from both. I don't agree with plea bargaining at all, actually. In The Plea, it shares how some of the women in the first half were convicted of something that they didn't do and were offered a plea bargain. This feels like a false trial to me. Like guilty till proven innocent instead of innocent till proven guilty. And we shouldn't be doing that as a justice system. To pressure the innocent into being guilty and letting the guilty be free and innocent. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times we're just taking these people off the streets and being like, you did something bad, but here's a plea bargain and pay this much or get this much time. And it's like, where's the trial? Where's the jury? Where's their peers to be like, yes, they are guilty? No, it's just saying that they're guilty and be like, hey, do this stuff and do whatever. And I don't think that's right. I think that is lazy. It's even described in chapter 15. Some people have state that the plea bargaining is incompetent, inefficient, and lazy method of administering justice. Though it's also stated in the book that plea bargaining gives others a chance to rehabilitate themselves, the ones being convicted for the better. I still think that plea bargaining is still not the right choice, especially if it's used in a way to get through cases quickly. Like earlier was stated in chapter 15, how some people's thoughts were like, it's kind of not good. And I think we should be treating that as like a rare case thing rather than a quick pass through. Like a second half of like after a trial happens, I think we should then have like, if you plead guilty, here's your options, rather than being like, oh, you're already guilty, so here's your pleas. That's just kind of just feels icky. Wrong. And a lot of times these bargains lack evidence from a court. So, yeah. Question 3. After reading President Trump's tariffs versus the Supreme Court's duties, answer the following. Why is this case being heard by the Supreme Court? What were the steps that led to this moment? What are the implications of this case? In other words, depending on how the court rules, what does this mean for presidential power? Okay, and this was my response. It's being heard because it could be considered a foreign policy or a national security risk, I guess. Or if it's about Congress's own power of the purse. The article didn't really clarify why it was being called to trial. It just kind of was like, here's some words and it's one of these, and it's like, oh, that's not a definite answer, but I guess it's considered. I would consider it a foreign policy because even though it's affecting us and us buying stuff, it's also interfering with foreign countries, and it's causing a imbalance in the market because people are more likely to now buy stuff from one country than the other because it's cheaper to buy it from this country because of the import tax instead of, oh, I'm gonna just buy it from this one because it's the same tariff, trying to think. It's like if we usually buy our lumber from Canada, and because they have nice forests, and the tariffs and the transportation costs are pretty relatively low, and then suddenly Trump's like, you know what, we don't like Canada, let's just raise up the prices, and now we have to pay more, and now people are looking to other places to buy the lumber instead. That's affecting a different company that could be outsourcing for that lumber rather than getting lumber from within our own country. And it's hurting mostly our smaller businesses than the big ones, because the bigger the business, the more they can afford importing cheaper product. Unlike the smaller business, which they don't have the money to import their said product. So it could be a market thing too. I don't know about the national security thing though. That doesn't really fit in here. And power of the purse, definitely power of the purse. Rich people want to get their stuff cheap. They don't like spending money unless it's on just themselves. If they can make money from buying something cheap and then selling it for a lot more because of supply and demand, they'll do it. Okay. This case was brought to light due to Trump's constant constantly changing the tariffs depending on his mood in holding control of the U.S. economic market. I already said that earlier. If the court rejects Trump's interpretation of IEEPA, then he can't invoke IEEPA as a basis for future tariffs, which might not do anything at all. Shucks, as if we didn't know, because we never really expected this to happen. If courts accept it, then we will continue seeing the current pattern in our tariffs. An unstable fluctuation that will harm small business owners due to it not being able to afford their shipments and supplies at a rate they need. Yep, already stated that. Anyway, I'm going to cut this short now because I'm already over my 10-minute mark. Thank you.